Assalamu alaikum. Praise be to God, the Lord of the worlds. We ask Allah to raise the rank of Prophet Muhammad and protect him from what he fears for his nation. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala sayyidi rasulillah. This is the first video in a series of short videos that I'm planning to share as my contribution in the fight against terrorism, especially the groups linking themselves falsely to Islam. Today's biggest security challenge is terrorism and its terrible effects on society. There is growth in extremism among diverse groups, and although the majority of terrorist acts are labeled falsely as Islamic, one who looks with fair eyes cannot deny the rise of hatred among different groups, whether from a national, racial, or religious perspective. We usually hear the term terrorism used to describe any crime that is committed by an individual or a group claiming to represent Muslims, while crimes and mass shootings committed by others are usually brushed off as acts of individual insanity. This rhetoric is being advocated by the media and serves some interest groups, as we often see the terrorist acts targeting Muslims being ignored, or when covered, portrayed as acts of terrorism in Islamic countries that target foreigners. Like the recent case of the suicide attack at Ataturk's airport in Istanbul, Turkey. Although the majority of the casualties were Muslim, still it was portrayed as an attack against a major hub, the airport, where foreigners can be found. Or the attack against the bakery in Dhaka, Bangladesh, where the majority of the victims were Muslims as well. Yet again, it was pointed in the media that it is an attack in a place nearby embassies, foreigners again. Often the so-called experts invited to discussion panels address terrorism as evil that needs to be fought without addressing the roots and the preventive measures other than the military intervention. Some political candidates called for the return of waterboarding. Waterboarding who? The terrorist that blew himself out? Shouldn't we know who they are, their doctrine itself, and targeting their twisted beliefs as well? This is how we bring the fight back to them, by exposing them and their twisted beliefs, and not by alienating the majority that they claim to represent. I mean the 1.6 billion Muslims around the world. The main challenge in understanding these groups is trying to understand their belief. And especially when it comes to these groups, when I'm talking about the so-called ISIS and Al-Qaeda, there are two main beliefs in Islam that these groups take out of context. The first one is the belief that the only true and accepted religion is Islam. All prophets, from Adam through Abraham, Noah, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, peace be upon them, called for the belief in the one and only God, the creator of the worlds. These groups manipulate this belief by claiming that they are the only believers, by claiming that Muslims who do not follow their interpretation are apostates. Apostasy is a term that is used to describe the person who leaves a religion. The punishment against such a crime is death in Islam. It is also death in Judaism and Christianity. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 13, verses 6 to 11, it was mentioned, and I'm going to spell the verse 9, but you shall kill him. Your hand shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. In the second book of Chronicles, chapter 15, verse 13, it mentions that whoever would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, should be put to death, whether young or old, man or woman. It is clear that the punishment is death. However, the execution of the law is the responsibility of the state. For obvious reasons, no one wants have everyone claiming to execute the law and start their own vigilante trying to get rid of whatever they see unfit. And this is exactly how we can understand the urge that these groups aim, or these groups have, to claim legitimacy, whether in the case of Osama bin Laden, who requested his followers to pledge allegiance to Mullah Omar of Taliban, for example, as Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leader of the believers, or what the non-Islamic state announced as al-Baghdadi, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, being the Khalifa, the ruler of their so-called Islamic State. With this doctrine, the non-Islamic State went a step further from other terrorist groups who were limited to pledging allegiance to group leaders by claiming a ruler and a state, giving themselves what they claim to be a legitimacy to execute the laws, hence killing apostates or non-believers. The result of such belief is that Christians, Jews, and other non-Muslims are to be dealt with as per the ruler's wish. So if he wishes to take a certain tax from them and keep them, so be it, he is the ruler. Or if he wishes to kill them or send them out of the country, also this is for him to decide and for his followers to execute. As for the case for Muslims, Muslims are considered as apostates and to be killed unless they join this group. This is the core reason why the majority of the non-Islamic State victims are Muslims, which is something the media unfortunately usually doesn't cover. The second belief is that this life is merely a passage to the hereafter, along with the belief that a martyr's sins are forgiven. It can be only expected that the followers of these groups do not care about life. They portray to their followers that this life is not what they should strive for. Martyrdom is the way. That's why they blow themselves up. And that the only way to be saved is by following the ruler, which in their case right now is al-Baghdadi, for example. This is a twisted belief, as Muslims are required to learn about their religion. Knowledge is very important in Islam. Muslims are required to be able to differentiate between right and wrong, something that the followers of these cults have managed to twist by portraying that the essential is believing their twisted creed and that the ruler is executing the will of God. Subjects that we will discuss soon, inshallah, in the future, talking a little bit about their origin, their creed, and how different they are from Muslims. This was merely an introduction to the subject. Hopefully, I'll be able to share some information in the future videos. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.